So good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all here. I'm Einav Divne-Schwartz. I'm the head of the National Erasmus Office in Israel, and I'm very happy to be opening this important TAM. TAM is a technical assistance mission. It's a joining of minds, local experts, and international and joining us also an international expert in specific fields that are very, very relevant to higher education in Israel. And today we will be focusing on behavioral approaches to promote SDG on campus. I know that all of you are very involved in promoting SDGs. And today we're going to take a more behavioral approach, how the students and staff that go through our campuses are actually influenced behaviorally, changing in behavior and values as part of their experience in higher education. So we have wonderful best practices here with us today. And of course, I'm very happy to have also Mr. Henrik Sippelmeyer, a co-founder of Plischtik and PhD research fellow at the Department of Strategy and Management at the University of Agder in Norway, and visiting PhD researcher at KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden. And before we begin, I just want to give the floor to Professor Marcelo Sternberg, who was the one who had the idea of having this type of session. He's our local Erasmus Plus expert in Israel from the School of Plant Sciences and Food Security, and also the head of Carbon Neutral Initiative at Tel Aviv University. So Marcelo, I'll give you the mic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Einav. Thank you all for coming to this interesting conference. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Conference of Behavioral Approaches to Promote SDGs on campuses, an event that proudly supported by Erasmus Plus program of the Council of Higher Education of Israel. Together, we are meeting this morning in a clear and urgent mission to foster behavioral change on Israeli campuses and move towards carbon neutrality and sustainable practices. This is one of the key issues that we need to work on, trying to reducing our environmental impact, ecological impact of the campus activities. We know that the universities play a unique role as both engines of innovation and social transformation, and Israeli campuses are hubs of creativity and progress, and within our capabilities to lead to reducing the ecological footprint and rethinking about our daily behaviors and implementing sustainable practices. Over the coming sessions, we will explore yet small but yet impactful shift in behaviors that are needed towards a more sustainable management and vision of our campuses in Israel, and also compare that to other places abroad. And well, I want to thank you again for being here, and looking forward for an interesting 2 days conference, and well, looking forward for meeting you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcelo. And now I would like to give the floor to Professor Ofer Arazi, Director of Innovation and Sustainability at the University of Haifa, in a presentation on sustainability at the University of Haifa, insights from our journey. So, Professor Arazi, the floor is yours.
Right. Thank you, Einav, for the invitation, and thank you, Marcelo, for the opening. Welcome, everyone. I prepared a presentation. Hopefully, I can share my screen. Okay. Let me know. Can you see the presentation now? Yeah. Can you see it in presentation mode?
No, it's not on presentation mode. It's
okay. Just 1 minute. I'll fix that. Okay, are we in presentation mode now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. So I prepared a short presentation sharing our experiences at the University of Haifa. I'm not 100% sure that I'm directly addressing the scope of this work of behavioral approaches to promote SDG on campus, but I'll do my best, and hopefully I understood the focus of what we're looking to do here. Okay, so I'm going to start with the University of Haifa's vision, because that sets the stage for what we're doing in terms of promoting sustainable development. And what you'll notice is that the vision starts with research and teaching, the university's first and second mission. But then the next two paragraphs are very much focused on the academia's third mission. And I'll just read some parts. This strategic plan of the University of Haifa focuses on social and environmental issues as part of its effort to improve human well-being in the Israeli society, and goes on and on. Talks about being an engine for the development of social, public, and business leadership, etc. So really, this vision centers on the academia's third mission, and I think that this audience probably familiar with the discussions on the role of academia beyond the first and second missions, lots of books and lots of articles on the topics. These are just a few. And as a result of this, we're seeing improvement in the way we are ranked in terms of impact in specific times higher education. This is a result of the different activities that I will introduce in a second. But about 4 years ago, when we launched this initiative, the university was ranked somewhere 300 to 400, and every year we've advanced. So we're happy to see some external validation for the efforts that we're doing. All right, so first some clarifications and scoping. So we talk about the same things. First, we're talking about sustainable development on campus and not just sustainability. And this is an important distinction because the term sustainability is very much associated with the environment, although we talk about economic sustainability and social, but certainly in Hebrew, when you say kayamut, it is very much linked to environmental issues. And here we're talking about the 17 goals, both social, economic, and environmental aspects. That's important to clarify. Second, when we say promoting it on campus, we're mostly focused on the staff's professional activity. And I'll say why I think that this is important, this distinction is because I can educate, for example, faculty members to have sustainable practices, for example, let's say at home, to recycle at home. And that's great if everybody recycles at home. But I think what makes the most impact is if they change the way they act professionally. If I tie my research and link my research in some way to promote the SDG, there's a potential to make an impact. If it's part of an educational program, because we're not just any people, as researchers, we're in a privileged position and we have resources and we have the reputation. And the way that I think to make the impact is to tie it to our professional activities, to our own research and teaching. So that's, and then a third clarification is when we talk about changing behavior, I'm less than a believer in mass communication, what I call throwing flyers from an airplane and telling people, okay, this is what you should do. The way that we try to change the behavior is through involving the faculty and students as well. I'll get to that in a second. So tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So if we want to educate the staff and students, we need to find ways to involve them. So that's kind of the setup. Now, what actions did we actually perform? And I look at different audiences, the research staff, the administrative staff, and the students at the University of Haifa. First, research staff. And when we're talking about, changing their behavior, we need to understand where they come from. And, at university, our ethos as a researcher is to develop new knowledge and to innovate. It's all about co-research. And when you come to researchers and you tell them that you want them, or you're asking them to take their research in somewhere slightly different direction and to try to make an impact, we're encountering much resistance. And we had lots of conversations at a university to convince people that this does not go against basic research or core research. And most people view this as a continuum between applied research, between basic research that is concerned with fundamental understanding and the applied research. And what the message that we conveyed to these skeptical faculty members is that you can do both, that you can fold this axis, actually, and this is, of course, not my idea. Many others have suggested this in the past, specifically Donald Stokes with Pasteur's quadrant. So you can take this axis and fold it. So if you have consideration and use here on the x-axis and the quest for fundamental understanding, the basic research on the y-axis, if it's a 2x2 matrix, it means that you can be high on both sides. And this is what this book is all about. So this is the kind of message that we try to convey to the researchers, and talk about translational research and use inspired basic research. So basically, you want to be in the top right quadrant where the research is kind of achieves both the advancing of knowledge with core research and the application. So that is in terms of addressing the mitigating some of the resistance that we got on campus, and we still hear it all the time. This is a message and a process that needs to be continued throughout. All right, so the kind of activities that we did is we try to promote research that matters, or impactful research. And every year for the past 3 years now, we're going to the 4th year, we have an internal competition where we allocate internal funds, somewhere between $500,000 to $1 million shekel each year. We have this past year, we had 6 winners of this competition. And what are we looking for in this competition for impact projects? We're looking for basic research that takes an extra step and try to either shape policy. For example, researchers sit in different committees at the national level, regional and international level. They produce policy documents. So researchers that are involved in shaping policies, that comes out of their research, out of the knowledge and out of their own research, they are active in shaping policy. Another example or sphere of influence is innovating work practices. We see this a lot in wellness and well-being, in education. For example, researchers in occupational therapy develops a new method, and then he conveys this to practice. And now all of the practitioners of the largest HMO in Israel, Clalit, for example, employ this technique. That is research-based impact and changing work practices, or educating the public through different means. So these are the kind of projects that we have for the past 3 years. I'll give you some examples of winners. Before that, the partnerships are critical, and this is one of our criteria for this competition, because if you want to make a change in the broader society, you need to work with partners. And we want to see these partnerships in the different projects that we fund. One project is Safe Heart, a psychologist, Ree Solomon, right after the 7th of October events, he and his team have provided mental support to people from the Nova Party, and they recruited tens of practitioners, and together I think that they served over 2,000 people in the weeks after the events. And this is not just a one-time treatment. They work with them for several treatments. I think roughly it was 6 hours on average. So this is a researcher that specializes in trauma and in treating trauma, and then he takes and makes that extra step. This is one example. I put this just to show that this is done by successful researchers, because the kind of vibe that we're getting sometimes on campus is that the people that are involved in impact are the people that are not successful in publishing top research. And we wanted to show that this is not the case. You can have top researchers that are also active in helping the community. Another example here, this is with food security, and one of our faculty members is the chair of the National Committee for Food Security, and they pass new laws and regulation and so on. So this is Professor Ronnie Steer, again, an excellent researcher, but also very active. And we have other examples, people in ecology. Some of you might know this. This is My Earth. That's the project where they try to save biodiversity hotspots through crowdsourcing and the educational programs. And this too is headed by one of our faculty members. So these are examples of research projects. Also working with the researchers is trying to promote meaningful education. So courses that not only teach those values of the SDGs, the social and environmental aspect, but also take the extra steps and work with partners to try to implement the change. 5 winners in this year's competition. And again, a couple of examples. One is a project that's called the White Studio in the School of Design, which used to be WIZO, University of Haifa School of Design. And here students are trying to develop sustainable solutions to fashion. And if you know that fashion is one of the most polluting industries, and they work with fashion companies. So this is not just an exercise for a class, but they're actually trying to develop solutions in partnerships with those companies. This is one example. Another example is in trying to provide employment solutions to people that suffered as a result of the war, mostly people that served Miluim and still serve, and soldiers that have been recently finished the army. So we have a special program for training them specifically in the area of marine sciences and innovation in those areas, and opening the doors to employment. So that is an example of what we're trying to do with our research staff. So not only to teach them, but really get them involved and get them active in taking their research and their teaching to make a change. With the administrative staff, we've done some things. We can do much more. We can do much more. I think we're still in early stages. So we want to involve the staff in sustainable operations. Again, we don't want just to tell them what to do. We want to show them what we are doing and involve them in what a university is doing. So that is the key here. Similar to other universities, I think Tel Aviv was the lead with Marcelo here. We also created a map of our carbon emission and the carbon footprint, and that is used as a basis for improving our operations. And then in those different areas where we're trying to improve, we try to involve faculty. For example, if you have community gardens, then we involve faculties in community gardens. So just one example, I think that there's lots that we can do beyond what has been done. And finally, students. So most of the work with students on these areas are carried out by the Dean of Students and the Unit for Social Involvement. Some of their initiatives is the Green Campus Initiative, and then they have the Blue Team Initiative. Here an example. So yeah, we try to work also directly with the students, but at least at Haifa, the student body, the student society is very political. We find it very, very difficult to work with them. And we work mostly with the dean student in trying to change students' behavior. So that's my short presentation. Wrapping up, we have a clear vision which places human, social, and environmental values at the center. We have developed a mission statement and a plan, and we are just beginning to implement. I think there's so much more that we can do. So that's my message for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Arazi. That was very, very interesting and a very unique take on the university goals and how they are incorporated in different levels, staff, academic, research, students. So I think it was gave a lot of food for thought for all of us. Does anyone have a question for Professor Arazi? Yeah,
I
Henry.
do. Yes. Thank you. That was very interesting and a great pre-presentation to my talk in a minute here. I was wondering about the comment you left there about the students being very political. Could you elaborate on that a little bit, on what makes it difficult to work with the students and how you have tried to work with them? Because that's obviously, that sounds fun.
What we try to do is to identify a group of students who have some interest, environmental and social issues, and get them involved beyond the activities at the Dean of Students, because the Dean of Students is very active in these areas, and we just try to add. And why it was difficult, the different groups of the student body, they don't speak to one another, and the group that was very much interested in green activism or environmental activism did not work well with the other bodies. Just a mess there. So sorry, but that's the situation. So we found it much more effective to work with the Dean of Students, to be involved in their programs, to help with funding some of the programs. That has been our main channel.
Marcelo, you wanted to ask?
Yeah, thank you. Just a short question. Thank you very much, Ofer, for the nice presentation. I just want to ask you, and that will be a question also we're asking the next speakers. Have you considered some evaluation success indicators? So how you manage to evaluate that you really have a success in changing behavior? Have you considered that within the different staff of the university?
So we don't measure directly our success in terms of changing behavior, but we do measure our performance in terms of this entire sustainability initiative. And one of the ways is I've mentioned the Times Higher Education Impact Ranking. I think that this is the most comprehensive ranking because it looks at different aspects, not only the research and the teaching and the public engagement and the internal operations, and it goes again across all of the SDGs. There are 2,100 universities that participated, including MIT and so on. So we do measure ourselves, and also we are involved in a EU consortium that looks at developing novel measurements for these aspects for the academia's third mission. So not directly measuring the impact in changing attitudes, but measuring the impact of this overall initiative.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Professor Arazi. If there aren't any other questions, we will continue with the next presentation. So this is our keynote presentations, Universities as Architects of Sustainable Social Norms. I give the floor to Henry.
There we go. Now we have sound. Thank you very much. Yes, that is indeed the title of what I'm going to talk about. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, that looks good. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and talk about something that I have been spending most of my time with during the last 10, 12 years, I think now. So social norms, sustainability, universities, how change can happen, how to change behaviors. And that's the big picture of what I'm trying to well, inspire you about maybe today. I guess would be too much to say I can solve anything here, but I hope I can inspire at least and perhaps offer new perspective. Indeed, the goal for me is what I want to achieve is that you understand a little bit the role of social norms for sustainable behavior change, and you understand how universities can be architects of designing social norms that support behavior change. If that's what you take away from this, then I've achieved my goal. And before we jump into that, you should know who I am a little bit and why I am here. So my name is Henrik Siepelmeier. I am at the very last bit of my PhD in sustainable consumption behaviors at the University of Agder in southern Norway. And I'm also a visiting researcher at KTH in Stockholm, which is where most of my research happens, and at RMIT in Melbourne in Australia. So in my research and as a PhD, I look at the power of social norms to influence behaviors, specifically in the context of sustainability and specifically in the context of waste. So there's going to be a lot of waste references throughout this conversation, and that's why there's other waste talks coming up later today. But that's my big topic. And my background before the PhD journey sort of is in environmental sciences and sustainability studies from Leuphana University, who, as some of you may know, has a pretty long history of sustainability integration throughout the university. And I was one of the first sort of to study in their more internationally focused program on sustainability sciences. So I live and breathe sustainability sort of from the start. And I built on that with a master's in leadership and organization, which was also specifically focusing on change management and sustainability at Malmö University. And now I'm here in Scandinavia, but I originally am from Germany. And as I said, this was the research focus of the last 10 years, but of course there's a little journey behind that. So I want to talk you through to get the idea. The journey starts a little bit from left to right, sort of, that we see here. And the start of this is not really at Twitter, but it's in San Francisco. I went to an internship with the city of San Francisco with the Department of the Environment in 2014, well, sometime back then. And I originally was interested in their climate change team, because that, of course, is where the impact is. And then I learned that the climate change team is one person and not really a team to intern with, but they had a zero waste team. And I thought, oh, great, waste. That sounds interesting, but yeah, all right, I still did it. Went and realized this actually is extremely interesting. And that is the most interesting perspective on sustainability I've seen so far, because for me, the whole waste topic looks at all the sustainability problems, but from a different perspective, from the end perspective. So I found that very exciting. That was the start, how I got deep into the waste topic and how my career sort of focused on waste. It was also where I learned about social influence and how important it is to know what other people are doing and how much we're influenced by what other people are doing. And then back in Germany, finishing my bachelor's, I got very involved in a bunch of initiatives to change the universities. A bunch of initiatives. We'll talk through that a little bit, but I have lived through changing campus sustainability and implementing sustainable operations as a student, pushing sort of administration and including that in coursework. And I've also founded a business during that time period, which is called Pleach, and it's essentially a franchise concept which works with regular supermarkets to bring in a section of locally produced, organic, and unpackaged products that you can buy in bulk as much as you want, but right where you are in your everyday situation, in your regular supermarket, and not in some special store for some very special eco-minded people who we might associate with low publication numbers, as Ofer has so fittingly described that before. So lots of talk. All I want you to take away from this is all my professional life has been about sustainability, about impact, and about driving that, both as a student as a professional. And that's why I think I'm here to tell you a little bit about that experience and what you might be able to learn from this. Yes, so let's jump in. This is the context in which we operate here. So when I talk about sustainability, also a little bit of my definition, I do mean it in the alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, which of course are broader than just environmental impact, although my main focus is on environmental sustainability, waste and emissions. So there might be a little more focus on the environmental aspect here, but keep in mind that that is a broader, there's more to it than just emissions. And now, before we jump in, because I thought it's still early for most of us, I would like you to make this somewhat interactive, to write down one specific aspect of your work that is connected to sustainability. So if you're, let's say, if you're an operations manager who's here and you deal with waste, you can say, well, waste handling, clearly. If you're an academic staff, you could write something about business travel or how one of your courses is connected to sustainability, or one aspect. So just write that down. We'll take 30 seconds for that. That shouldn't take too long. Then we'll work with that later on. All right, that's close to 30 seconds. We'll see. You can still come up with new ideas there as we go. Okay, so let's jump in. And to start, I thought we look at the bigger picture. And we look at sustainability universities, operations, education, and social norms. So a little more broadly. And so that we have a shared understanding of what social norms are. And to make this more interesting, let's understand that first before we talk about operations and education and that connection. Here's a fun little video which can symbolize at least one type of social norm, and we'll discuss in a minute what other types exist, but I love this one, so I hope you do find it amusing too.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with a white shirt, the lady with a trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before.
All right, so I can watch this over and over again because it is just hilarious. So this is a good example of this behavioral impact of social norms. Here it seems a little unnecessary that we're influenced by other people in the elevator facing the wall, and clearly that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but yet it just forces us to do so. And that sort of illustrates very strongly how much of a driver social norms can be in changing behaviors. And that's also why I think they are the most interesting and wonderful tool to think about when thinking about behavior change. That's also why we should think about them in the context of university sustainability and in combination with operations and education. So let's dial it back one step here. When we talk about sustainability at universities, these are the main topics, right? We talk about operations, where does the electricity come from? How can we be more water efficient? How can we use air conditioning in a more efficient sense? What about waste management? How do students commute to campus? What does staff travel to, and so on? That is the first step, right? Environmental management systems, resource efficiency, and so on. And that makes perfect sense because that's where the environmental impact is. And that is, what we need to urgently tackle to not all become very, have difficult lives, let's put it this way. Then one little step further, sometimes in a discussion about sustainability at campuses, is education. So how can we include that in our teaching, in our research? And we heard some great examples of these discussions and how difficult it can be to get people to include sustainability in the research. And here that could be elements such as equality, equal opportunities, fairness, even just making sure that students from different backgrounds and education households have the same chances in your courses. All right. These are not only the two aspects which are commonly discussed in sustainability context, but these are also essentially what universities do, right? They have operations and they do education/research, let's put it this way. So how I want you to see this now to understand my analogy. It's not a great one, but stick with me. It's a very German Swedish one, okay? This is the bread and this is the butter, okay? Right? They go together. This is the bread and butter of universities, is operations and education. And now we have social norms, and social norms to me, they're sort of the salt, okay? Why the salt? Because you need some salt in the bread for that to taste good, okay? And ideally, at least if you live in Scandinavia, you always want to have some salt in your butter because that brings out the taste, right? And then when you really feel like you really want to treat yourself, then you might sprinkle some additional one on top. And then you have a really good snack and really good taste. And that is sort of how social norms work. Social norms, operations of the university are closely connected to social norms and what kind of social norms they create. The education, how we integrate sustainability here is so very closely connected to social norms. This is part of it if we want or not. It's almost impossible to exclude the social norm element, but often we forget that it's part in there. We don't look at it specifically. And then we can use social norms specifically on top of their inclusion in these other elements to drive behavior change. This is sort of the backdrop to social norms and their meaning. And now to really know what we're talking about, let's just understand social norms a little more than just by looking at a video. So here's a little bit of an introduction. First of all, what are social norms if we look at them from a little bit of a philosophical standpoint? And this is a little bit of the dry part before we apply and see fun again, but I promise it's not going to be too dry. So social norms are sort of unwritten rules or shared beliefs about what is socially appropriate conduct. That can mean it's an unwritten rule about what is okay and which behaviors are allowed and not socially sanctioned, but also which behaviors are appropriate to face a certain situation. So in this elevator, for example, we see, okay, the others are turning around. This seems to be the appropriate behavior here for whatever reason. This is what we do, right? That is a descriptive norm. That is a descriptive norm is what I can see others perform and how I can see others behave. Then we have the injunctive norm. That is the ought to. This is what I'm thinking about when I think about littering, right? We all know you shouldn't litter. That's an injunctive norm. That's something ingrained, a moral value. This is things you do or you just don't do because you fear that there are social implications if you do something that is violating an injunctive norm. And then there's personal norms, and those are internalized norms. It's like an inner moral compass. They build over a longer time. They have a lot to do with how we grew up, what values we have, our political ideas, and they're more stable. And descriptive and injunctive norms, they're externally and they can change. And we perceive these norms. So if we perceive the descriptive norm to be we turn around in the elevator, that might not be the actual norm, right? It might not be that in all elevators, or even all of us in this building, we turn around. It may be that it's just with these people that are just in the elevator right now. So I always perceive a norm. That's important to understand because it doesn't mean that the norm is actually true. Now, why do norms influence behaviors, right? What is the underlying logic behind this? Why would that play a role for us, what others do or what we think others would find acceptable? For that, we can take a little step back, some couple of thousand years back, and look at who we are as humans. And then we see we're still very much in the Stone Age when it comes to how our brain works, right? We're still very much the same people that we were when we used stone for whatever we wanted to do. And those people back then, you had two very important things that you wanted to make sure, okay? Number one, that it's not you who gets eaten by the lion. Okay, I'm speaking very figuratively here, but you get the idea. And number two, that you don't get kicked out of your group, because if you get kicked out of your group, then probably you'll get eaten by the lion. So what does that have to do with the social norms? If you behave like everybody else in your clan or your family, chances are pretty good that it's not going to be you who will be eaten by the lion because you ran the same way as everybody else. You looked in the same corner of the cave as everybody else, and there was no lion, so you're safe. If you choose a different path from the norm, chances are there's a risk attached to it. And then if you behave in a way which you know is not what is acceptable within your group, then there's a chance that you will be kicked out of the group, which then again leads to you probably getting eaten by a lion. This also can symbolize quite well why it's relevant at whose norms sort of we look at, right? So think about the group membership here. It doesn't make sense for me to think about what is an acceptable behavior in a different tribe if I'm not part of that tribe. Like if you behave in line with what you consider people of the neighboring tribe to be acceptable behaviors, that doesn't make sense if you don't live in that tribe. So a norm to impact my behavior has to be held by a group that I am a part of or that I feel is relevant to me and that I share some identity with. But this is the essential backdrop why social norms influence behaviors and why they still influence behaviors today. And that is why we see, as in this video, we still follow others. This is not some old age stuff, but it's still active today. Now, I already said these norms need to be held by a relevant group. They also need to be activated, right? For a norm to influence my behavior, I need to become aware of that norm. For example, by seeing others behave in a specific way that is perhaps not in line with what I assumed would be relevant. And I'll give you a couple of examples of activation. Actually, we can jump here for a second. There's 3 ways essentially how a norm can be activated. You can witness somebody else behave in a certain way that can activate a descriptive norm, right? Somebody is doing something and or others are doing something and that activates the idea that, oh, this is how we behave, apparently. It can be written material, so you could read about how other people behave or read some statements that illustrate what is the behavior of others or what is appropriate. Yeah, there's a whole bandwidth here, and there's a lot of research that has used written materials to influence using social norms, but they can also be contextual cues. So a contextual cue could be walking into a car park, the classic study on social norms, and seeing that there's a lot of litter around in the car park, lots of old flyers. If you see a lot of old flyers around you, even though you know you shouldn't litter, the chance of you littering is very large because everybody seems to litter. Like that seems to be the okay behavior and what is appropriate to do here. That can be a contextual cue. Same for walking into a room. There's another interesting study that looked at universities and university students' likeliness of turning off a computer after having used a computer room, independence of whether that computer was turned off when they walked in or whether when it was turned on when they walked in. And when the computer was turned off when they walked in, the chances were much higher for them to turn it off again when they leave the room. Same for switching off the lights and so on. So there can be a cue about what is the appropriate behavior here, what do others do? And that can activate a norm. And another precondition or relevant factor to consider is that norms become particularly relevant under uncertainty. So when we don't quite know how to behave and what is the right way to do, then we look at norms and we become very aware of the norms around us. So for example, you step into a new environment, you don't quite know what is the norm here. Do I shake hands? Do people use their first name or their last name? You will watch and then you adapt, right? That's in these situations specifically that social norms impact behaviors. All right, so now we understood what are social norms. We also have seen, okay, from an evolutionary perspective, perhaps, why do they influence behaviors? But now let's take it to today again and see why is that still active today? Because the social norms either promise social rewards or sanctions, that is the injunctive norms. What should one do? If you do what one should do, then you can expect to be rewarded by society. But if you violate that norm, there's a risk that you will be punished for it, right? By people not liking you, not inviting you, whatever. They can also offer behavior shortcuts because sometimes it just makes sense to do what others do because that seems, why would they do it if that weren't an appropriate behavior? And we'll talk about 2 everyday examples in a second. And then we learned that they need to be activated. So let's look at examples. One is you take the train to a new station. You haven't been there before. This is your final station. So you're now looking just for the main exit. So what do? You step out of the train and the easiest way is to just follow the crowd, right? Like the other people, most people will go either to the main hall or to the main exit. That's what's going to happen. You could, of course, step out and look at signs and look around and make sure that you know exactly where to go. But the very easy energy-saving way and way to process much faster is to just follow the crowd, and it's not wrong. So there's a value in behaving in line with social norms. Now, another environment, let's assume you start a new job, and the job is at Wall Street, and you haven't yet received your specific regulations for how to dress and what to do, but you can easily pull in your mind what do people do in this environment, right? How do they dress, or what is perceived to be relevant here? Do I need to look professional, so I must wear a suit, so ergo I choose to wear a suit? So injunctive descriptive norms that make a lot of sense because they make our life a lot simpler. And that is why we still behave in line with these, and we very much follow them. Now, why are these norms relevant for sustainability? Because most people want to follow the norm and want to behave in line with the norm, but most people don't want to violate the norm. Very few like to behave in a way that is not what others do, which means, if the norm is to be sustainable, that's great, because then most people will want to behave sustainably. But if sustainability is not yet the norm, and it's something novel, and most of your colleagues use the car to get to work, and there's only this one very weird person who comes to university barefoot that is using public transport, then probably you won't accept that behavior and take that over, right? So there's a challenge when it comes to sustainability that not yet normative behaviors stop us from picking up a norm and behaving in line with this norm. Let's look at some other examples, just so we're absolutely sure we've understood norms. So let's assume you go to the gym, right? First time there, you go to the shower. Do you turn off the water at the gym shower? I don't know. You will look around. What do the others do? Do they turn off the water or not? Is there a sign saying, encouraging me? Yes, turn off the water. This is what we do here. That's probably going to make an impact on how you behave. You're at a company dinner. You have some leftovers. What do you do? Do you ask for a doggy bag? Is that appropriate? Can I do that? What does my boss do? What do the others do? There are lots of situations like this where we look at what the others do and then determine is this right or wrong. Although you may be a person who says, it's absolutely important to me to pick up my leftovers and not leave them behind, but still you will watch, is that appropriate? If you're at the beach, you see some trash, will you pick that up? Is anybody else picking up the trash? If you're the first to pick up, maybe somebody else will pick up because they see you. You get the idea, right? And then in Sweden, there's always a fun one. You would never sit next to another person on the bus, like directly. Oh my God, that's just unwritten rule. If you see that, you immediately know that person, clearly a tourist, and everybody will be like this. Oh yeah. It's like standing at a bus stop. These famous memes. Should have built that in here. Anyhow, you get the idea. This is social norms. So let's summarize that for our understanding introduction to social norms. There are different types. There are injunctive norms, that what is ought to be, and there's descriptive norms. What do I perceive to be the norm? These are external cues, right? What is expected or typical among a group. There's also personal norms, which are formed internally and over time, and they're based on my socialization and my values and how I perceive these other external norms to interact with my values. Norms to influence behavior, they need to be activated, and that can happen through witnessing others' behavior, through text or documents, or through contextual cues, elements, artifacts. And norms are particularly relevant when there's uncertainty, when I don't know how to behave, and when they're held by a group that is relevant to me or that I can identify with. And norms that is relevant, again, are just a perception of what is appropriate or how others behave. Now, let us think about universities, and perhaps revisiting these norms, you already had some ideas why universities might be particularly potent architects of social norms, or why they might be particularly relevant to think about here. And I want to think about universities from a couple of different perspectives. So let's do that. First perspective is universities as cities. Okay, universities are essentially their own ecosystem, right? People spend a lot of time there. People from very different cultures, from different cities and areas, from geographies of different ages, different backgrounds, with different interests in different fields. So there's not a clear norm of how you should behave when you come to university necessarily, right? Because these people are different, ideally. We see that it's not quite as mixed, but that's what we want generally, right? We want everybody to be in a heterogeneous group. Students, staff spend a lot of time at university, not just, that does not just mean that most of their, at least half of their day or so happens on these campuses, but it also means that whatever they're exposed to there will have an impact on their behavior over several years. There's a good chance that they will internalize some of these behaviors and make them personal norms. Universities are a center of learning, of socialization, of consumption, of leisure. So there's multiple areas in which we are exposed to different behaviors and have to navigate. And universities, because if you think of a campus and everything that's around there, and your opportunities for where can I go for lunch and to even leave the campus, it is like going to your own little city in your bubble, staying there, and then you leave that again when you go home. So there's a lot of uncertainty because it's this mix of people. You spend a lot of time there, and they're also essentially like little countries, and that makes them quite unique because in little countries that are not governed by democracy, universities, you can make change much quicker than in other areas. So you can change the layout, you can change the infrastructure, you can change how things are done much more actively than you can in some other contexts, and thus design what is the norm and what is behavior that's quite common. Let's think about universities as places of change, because they are where students and people come in a critical stage of their life and development, often when they're young, often the first time they are in a new role, their new responsibilities that they suddenly have to deal with, their novel opportunities. Suddenly they're old enough to, sign contracts and start businesses and have kids and get into trouble. Proper trouble. So there's a lot of novelty. There's a lot of uncertainty. This is when you decide, oh, this is the direction I want to go to. Who am I? How do I become myself? What kind of person am I? What is appropriate here? What is expected of me? I mean, these are all questions that students face, and particularly face at universities. Of course, in schools, there's a lot of these elements. There's a lot of teaching about what is right and wrong, but you don't choose to go to a school, right? I mean, you're just there and you're exposed to this, and that's half of your day or maybe your morning, and then you're done. While at university, your whole life becomes university. So they're a natural place of transition, of lots of uncertainty, and they also naturally offer a shared reference group, right? We talked about earlier that norms need to be held by a relevant group. Here, you're part of a group, right? You're a student. That is like the most common denominator with everybody else. We're all students at this university. You might not perhaps perceive yourself very much as I'm a student, this is how I think of myself. Maybe you think of yourself as an engineering student, but there's still 200 others or so which share the same identity. So they're a natural place where you could see social norms be effective because there's a clear reference group or multiple clear reference groups. And again, it's where people are at the highly shapeable, influenceable age. Then let's think of universities as schools of critical inquiry. And this is a little bit about what is the role of universities. I mean, essentially students are there to gain knowledge, to learn how to think critically, and to gain intellectual autonomy to pursue truth, right? That's what we expect students to do when they come out of university. We want them to drive innovation, to contribute to society development, and we want to prepare a workforce and leaders of the future who can tackle today's and tomorrow's challenges. Now that naturally connects to sustainability. And this may be also a way, Ufa previously mentioned the resistance they're facing when, let's say, encouraging colleagues to look to integrate sustainability into the research. Well, maybe this is a way to think about sustainability. It's a natural extension of academic inquiry, right? Sustainability presents complex, interconnected challenges that require collaboration across fields, right? We need novel, innovative solutions. We need to understand, think in systems, the ultimate form of critical thinking, understand interrelationships on the grand level, have a long-term focus, learn from the past, prepare for the future. All of this is what we want students to do anyways, and sustainability presents a wonderful framework in which we can do that and naturally connects to this. So it should be easy to connect sustainability and make it relevant without presenting this as an add-on and as something we now also need to focus on, because that's not what it is. It's a chance to include this into students' everyday learning experience and show through that sustainability is everywhere. It's around us, and it's just about finding solutions that work over the long term and how we can design society in a way that is, working out for us for the next couple of 100 years. So universities are a place where this happens anyways, and universities have a chance to include sustainability in a way that signals the normality of this and creates this understanding of, yes, this is part of every day, this is part of all different courses and different fields, and this is part of a behavioral norm. Let's in summary, look at why universities are architects, or specifically suited as architects of sustainable social norms. It's a very critical time for students in their life and development. There's no natural norm to look at because it's such a mixed field. There's high uncertainty about how to behave. You want to fit in, but also become your own person. How do you do that? You look at what is going on around you. People spend lots of time on campus, so it's a great opportunity to internalize some of these roles. And there's a lot of shared reference groups that you could attach this to. Sustainability clearly is connected to what we want students to learn anyways. And you cannot not communicate in that style of, there will be social norms that develop on campus anyways. So students would, or universities would do wisely to try and create some sustainable norms which they want to see on campus. This was a lot of impact and content. And before we move and look at what universities can do to actively build and shape sustainable norms, I want you to just take a 2-minute reflection break. It's a lot of content here, social norms and university campuses. And just, I want you to think about, does this reflect your experience? Is this novel? Is this what you thought of before? Is this a new approach? Just let it sink in while I refill my coffee cup for a minute. All right, that was a little break. Let's move on and look at what can universities do to actively foster sustainable social norms. And we'll come back to my not so perfect, but you'll have to agree with it anyways, analogy of the bread, butter, and salt. And let's talk about the salted bread first. And that to me is operations. So how can we use sustainable operations to shape sustainable social norms at universities? And what is the connection between those? Well, you can make the campus operations meaningfully more sustainable and communicate this clearly and make it visible. What does that mean? Well, stuff like solar panels or water dispensers that are prominently presented signal this is what we do here. We bring our own bottles and we refill them, or we create our own electricity because that's relevant. Recycling stations that you can see suggest we sort our waste here. They also make the behavior that you want people to perform, namely recycling or refilling the bottle, very visible to others, right? So suddenly, if I don't have the water dispenser 3 corners around and in a little hidden cabinet, but it's very prominent in my hallway, I will see somebody else using their own bottle to refill, and that will showcase me, oh, it's not just something that the university provides, as in this is good, but it's also something people do. That's a way how I can use infrastructure to both actually have the impact that I want to see, but also use this to contextually imply what the social norm is here. You can investigate, okay, where do we have a misalignment between the values, what we want to stand for, showcasing that sustainability is important, and the injunctive norms that we show, or the artifacts that we show in our organization. So for example, if you say that we are interested in reducing our environmental footprint and work towards a circular economy, it doesn't make sense if you have to-go cups at every let's take the water dispenser around university, right? That's an obvious conflict. If you do that, you just undermine everything you've done, and your social norm will become evident that that's clearly not the norm and that you've just written something down. So that won't work out. You can also include students in university sustainability projects, because we talked about the natural extension, the great opportunities that sustainability and these complex challenges can be for students for learning. So if you have an operational challenge, you have students, right? They can't go anywhere. You know, it's free labor. They develop their brains by working with you, looking at innovative solutions. It will increase acceptance of any solution if you have students work with you to develop these solutions, and they can be great partners for doing so. And for them, it's great learning for how to implement something. It gives them self-confidence and self-efficacy because they are actually involved in problem solving. And it is, you know, lived experience of the partnership for the goals, goal 17. So those are elements you can do if you think about sustainable operations. And the goal behind this should be, think about making visible that sustainability is desired and practiced. Ensure that sustainable student behavior is visible, and also make unsustainable behaviors less visible. So that can also mean parking spots right in front of the main building, you know, wonderfully present. That's not a great idea. That's a very difficult thing to change, but maybe you can at least add, I don't know, add some bicycle parking even closer, or make that visible that we have bikes here. There's plenty of opportunities, and I'm sure we can have time later on and through this conference to discuss them. I want to show you some examples from my previous work. One is this. This is a recycling, very prominently positioned recycling infrastructure that we piloted and used for events, and then implemented later on for events, right? It's like a holy grail. It's on this green carpet. It's very visible, much more visible than just having one of those almost invisible silver trash cans here. You can't really walk past it. It has all the different colors and shapes that you can think of, and it clearly makes you perceive this as something that we do here, recycling, and it doesn't try to hide trash. Trash is there, and you want to show in which way you deal with it, because that can be a way to communicate a social norm through contextual cues. The other, and this, I had to create this yesterday using AI, but you get the idea, right? This is great, you know, picture on the left, wonderful, water dispenser right in the central hallway of university. This looks great. This clearly showcases this where you want to refill your bottle, and if you do, others will see you do it. This, terrible idea. To-go cups right next to it. I mean, come on, just stop that. You get what I'm going at. So this is operations. Let's talk about the salted butter, the education part. So sustainability is an opportunity for practicing critical thinking skills, and you should realize that. If you're an academic staff, don't see this as now we have to do something for sustainability. See it as this is the ultimate practical example of critical thinking and understanding complex interrelations. Include challenges from the real world in your teaching, in your cases. That is why I had you write down a specific connection. We'll come back to that in a second, because all of us face these, and it's not just some different disciplines in which you can integrate them. Maybe, yes, the engineers, they have something to do with innovation. No, everybody can do it. It's natural sciences, applied sciences, and health, there's something. Education, you'll find a connection. If you just look at the connection, you can integrate it, and through that signal to students, sustainability is part of your overall education. It's not an add-on, it's not one additional course. And you should try ideally to implement sustainability into students' life from day on, right? Because they don't know how to behave. They don't know what's important when they come to university. You can signal, for example, by sending out how to get here by public transport and by bike, and that is what we do here. And the percentage of people that come to universities by public transport, you can send that out before students even start, right? Most universities have like a new start brochure that can give you all this relevant information about what we do here and make it easy for you to follow these rules. And that immediately communicates a social norm of what is the desired behavior. And I mean, just keep in mind, sort of, if students are exposed to some type of sustainability throughout their studies, throughout the different courses, what is it that they have to think? They have to think, if everybody in each class has some connection to sustainability, this must be normal, right? And there you go. And that's what you want. You don't want everybody to go through one forced additional sustainability course. It's great to have that on the side. I think that's a wonderful addition for those who are interested, but ideally you weave it through your programs and expose them throughout their studies. So the goals here, integrate them through the studies, think about educating and training tomorrow's leaders, influencers, and citizens, and think about the students' impact over the next 70 years. So not just we teach them here now because this is part of our curriculum. No, you form the people who over 70 years will have an impact in their life. And the norms and the behaviors they learn and internalize here over the next 4-6 years, that is very likely going to influence who they become and what they do later on. I have an example. I told you before, my background is sustainability. So obviously I grew up with this, and now I also even did waste courses. So there's going to be a clear connection to sustainability and to university problems. But here's an example: 1.8 tons of university trash that we sorted to understand what we throw and how our sorting doesn't work or does work. That was a project. University was facing an issue. How can we improve our waste handling? And it was picked up in as a teaching case for interdisciplinary teaching to understand what is a real life problem. How can we use an academic approach to understand this problem, to solve it, and to involve the students? And the result was we understood what were the main missorted items. We could make clearer signage, and we could actually reduce the missorting here. So it's a clear connection between the teaching and the impact. And another one is the business that I founded. I mean, that's just based because the founding university was very strong on this connection. I think everybody that I went to university during my bachelor's with knows at least 2 people who have founded a business, simply because we made this very prominent and very popular and very easily accessible. It was something that it was included not just for people in economics, but throughout studies, right? For somebody in education, for somebody in cultural studies, in environmental sciences, that businesses can be a lever for impact, and to expose people through this and to train them in entrepreneurial thinking, and through that made it very accessible for many to develop solutions like this. So that's my very lived practical example of how this can play out. And now finally, the pinch of salt on top to make things taste really good, and that is to use social norms even more active than through these other areas, and to communicate them specifically in the context. So as I said before, norms are perceived, right? We don't know if they're correct. There's a study that looked at university or college students' perception of what normal drinking behavior looks like, and then also asked them how much they usually drink in a week, right? And as you can imagine, the average student drinks a lot less what they perceive the average student to drink during a week. So the perception was, oh, in college, everybody drinks, right? We get hammered 4 times a week. That's completely not true. That was the absolute minority of people who get hammered that often. And it's more like once a week, you know? And understanding where's the misalignment, or where's maybe a norm that is not actually correct and representative of the real world behavior, and then using this insight and correcting it through, for example, providing this information through, then there comes an educational element in here through making that experienceable on campus. That can be a way to correct for this norm misperception. I'll show you a sustainability related example in a second there. So targeted social norm interventions can be useful. And as I said, stuff like the New Start brochures or guidelines can be very suitable tools for communicating these insights. Although, please don't think that giving information is the way to solve this. We know that's not it usually, but that's not true because information doesn't work. It's usually true because we don't use the right kind of information. And informing about the behavior of others and using a social norm in this way can often be impactful. But what is important here is that this is, first of all, it's just a sprinkle. You can't use it all the time, but this might be more targeted for specific areas and must be believable, right? You can communicate progress. That's a very good way to say we're starting this and we're making progress. More and more people are now recycling here. But you shouldn't say we at this university, we're circle and we avoid all the waste, because that is very easy to disprove. And that's what we train students to do, to think critical. So they will spot this, and that's not going to work out then. So keep that in mind. You want them to think critically, and it's completely fine to not be at the end goal yet, but you can communicate change. And that is a way to express the social norm and draw the attention to the changing aspect and use that to influence behaviors. And that is something we did here in the study. That was actually my bachelor thesis that is published if you want to read it, where we have a cafeteria setting in our university. There was already a financial incentive to use the coffee mugs because it was 10 euro cents cheaper to use the mug instead of the cup, or actually you had to pay an additional 10 cents for the to-go cup, but still 80% of people used the to-go cups. Although it's students, they don't have money, right? You would think, oh my God, what? The taxes didn't work out. Yes, they didn't work out. So what we did was put up a sign, and this sign says, our guests are changing their behavior. More and more are now switching from a to-go cup to a reusable or sustainable alternative. Be part of this. Also choose a usable or reusable mug and help us protect the environment. So we have a combination. We see the descriptive norm, more and more are changing their behavior, which was actually true if you looked at a very long time period. So we weren't really lying. We're just framing it a little in our advantage. And we combined it with the injunctive norm of you should protect the environment. And just this sign, which didn't cost anything, increased to 17% increase in mug use, while the previous financial incentive did not. So this is a very targeted example of using a social norm, communicating this clearly. All right. The goal of this talk, right, if you remember, was for you to understand a little bit what are social norms, why do they impact behaviors, and why are they relevant in the context of sustainability? And also to understand why universities are particularly potent architects of social norms. We learned that norms have a strong influence on behaviors, both immediately and over the long run, because they can be internalized. Universities are uniquely positioned to establish these norms. Social norms offer a different perspective, perhaps, on the impact of operational sustainability and also on including sustainability principles in studies and as a starting point for skills development. And I hope you also learned that academic and operations staff can both be impactful drivers of sustainable change and of driving sustainable social norms. So I hope I achieved my mission a little bit of bringing this topic closer to you. And before I close this, I want you, in the sense of this very presentation of, showing that we all care and we all do something, we shall all now return to our little notes that we made before. The specific aspect of your work that is connected to sustainability. And if you're an academic staff, I want you to write down, think about how you can integrate this into your next lecture or work with the students, and do it very concrete. Write down one concrete action, what you can do next week. If you do it or not, that's up to you, but I want you to just make it very concrete. And if you're operational staff, think about this aspect. How is it related to social norms? How does it communicate what students, staff, or the organization are doing or what they ought to be doing? And how can you make that more sustainable? How can maybe the academic staff and students can help you? Sorry that the operational staff got a little more of a task here, but we'll actually take a minute here because I have one more minute before I need to be done. So we'll take this minute for you to write this down, and then I'll say my final thank yous. All right, I'll count this as a quick minute. With that, thank you very much for your attention. Was it Toda Rabba? Close to it. It was not quite accurate, but it's.
You said it perfectly.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Well, Toda Rabba then for your attention, and I hope this was somewhat informative, and feel free to ask any questions you may have.
I already received a private message asking for this excellent presentation copy. So you have at least one fan here.
Great. Of course, we can share that afterwards.
So does anyone have any questions? I saw Marcelo had a question during the talk. By the way, we're stepping into our break. So whoever needs a break, it's a good time to log out, and we'll be back here with a very interesting presentation by Professor Dorit Karet on positive sustainability in campuses. So stay tuned. At 11 it will begin. But if anyone has any questions, we're going to steal 5 minutes of Henrik's time.
Just a short question. Well, thank you very much again, Henrik, for your very nice presentation. I think most everyone here learned a lot. But one question is related to the benefits. When you have a social norm, you expect as a group or a person you expect as a benefit. And the benefit word was not present in your presentation. Can you develop a little about how you consider this benefit within the sustainable behavior change, and how can you translate that into action?
Yeah, so I mean, the benefits in a way, I didn't use the word benefit, that is true. If you think about the two drivers, sort of why should we behave in line with norms? I mean, there's the one driver of avoiding punishment and just receiving social acceptance, right? That's why we follow injunctive norms, because that's what we think is expected of us. And the other is to essentially save energy and have a shortcut to behaving properly. So those would be your benefits for just following the norm. And then that's the interesting thing about sustainability. It's we can, of course, try to make people understand that that they should find this good, right? They want to behave sustainably. That's what there's a fun example. I'll use that. There's a great hotel towel study, a study that looked at hotel towels and how we can get people to reuse their hotel towels instead of having them changed every day. And you all know the classic signs which communicate, help us protect the environment by reusing your towel, right? That's the classic approach. That is the idea of making, of presenting this norm, and the benefit of this would be good for the environment. It's in our own, all our interests. It's injunctive norm. That's why you should reuse the towel. It's not very effective. It doesn't work. What, however, does work is if you combine this and present a descriptive norm, and you tell people that many others are doing the same. And in this study, it was much more effective to communicate the percentage of people who previously had reused their hotel towel in this hotel, or specifically in that room, than to inform about the environmental benefits. And suddenly, if you communicate this, people feel, oh, okay, well, that seems to be the thing to do here. There we go. Or they perceive their own behavior to be more important. Oh, if everybody else does it, I can break the streak. Whatever it is, that's underlying there. I don't think we are super clear on the different drivers on a psychological level, but the seeing that others do it as well, that has a huge behavioral driver. So yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll take a short break and we'll be back here at 11. Thank you, Henrik.
Thanks.
Now, do you see the correct screen?
Hi again.
Hi. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, hear you perfectly.
Can you see the correct screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Like the positive sustainability head.
Including subtitles.
Nice.
So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dorit Kare, Chair of the Public Policy Department in Tel Aviv University, for a lecture on positive sustainability in campuses.
So thank you so much, Inab, for inviting me. And I was really excited by this invitation to talk about something that I care so much about. And then when I heard Henrik's talk right before me, I was even happier because he gave such an amazing talk. And obviously we come from the same literature background, and he talked and explained extensively things that I wanted to refer to in my talk. So it's wonderful because I didn't know how I can squeeze in everything I want to talk in 20 minutes. So you gave the perfect background. So I'm gonna briefly mention some of the things and reframe them and refer to your talk in a different way. So just before I begin, I want to share with you a little bit about my own personal journey, career journey, which was basically focused mostly in Tel Aviv University campus with a short break in Harvard University. But I started in the red building, what we call it, the red building in Tel Aviv University. People from Tel Aviv University probably know that it means that law department. And I studied law. Then I was interested in environment. I studied environment and did my PhD in environmental studies. And then briefly went to Harvard University to study at the Harvard Center for Risk Analysis. And when I came back, I wanted to change some things about my research and interests. And I ended up my journey right here in campus. And this is the picture that you're looking at the right end of my presentation is a picture of some of my students where I teach them in Tel Aviv University campus out of the classroom. So when Henrik asked how we use the campus to teach and activate students, this is exactly what I've been doing for the past decade or more. And I'll share with you more examples as we go in the presentation. So today I wanted to talk to you about the role of campuses, and I will really be brief because Henrik explained it so well. And then most of my talk will be focused on my personal research topic, which is coined positive sustainability. We'll talk what it is all about, and then how it can be implemented in campuses. So I agree with Enrique that the role of university is particularly important in the field of sustainability, as we have three in the academic staff. We refer to three main roles of the university: the research, the teaching, and the social change, which divides into outreach, which is how we share our information with general public, not just our own students, and campus management, what you refer to extensively in your talk. And I agree with Enrique that universities are major social change leaders because they have the resource and opportunities. They have the research, which provides new knowledge, and we're actually living labs. We can integrate students and do research like what you did with the coffee cups and other examples. And we are educating future generations, obviously, by the teaching role. And we are a city. As Enrique said, we have so many students and staff coming in and out, and we design the campus so we can be a role model at a city. And I also agree that we are in some countries, in Israel not so much, but in most countries, I think, in US for sure, we're a unique transitional stage in the lives of people coming from their parents' homes where their social norms have been structured by their families, and then setting up their own personal path. And this is a really important opportunity to set personal norms and create the change that we want to make. So I briefly want to mention that when we talk about behavior, we can analyze it using the behavior change wheel theory and look at behavior, seeing what opportunities in order to enact this behavior and the capability to act in this behavior and the motivation. For instance, if I want to have to eat more apples instead of cakes, or in Enrique's example, use more non-disposable cups instead of disposable cups, then maybe when I come from my parents' home, everyone used cakes as breakfast or disposable cups. And then I will have to acquire some skills like self-control skills in order to make my habit, to change my habits and make the preferable state as my automated state. So this is one way in order to create change, using education and the ability of the brain to change, what we call neuroplasticity in research. And the other option is when we use a choice architecture, or how we build the environment. Also, Enrique gave us many examples for this. If I want people to buy more fruit other than just candy, then I will put the candy away from their site and put the fruit right in front of them. This is really briefly stating it. So we have two ways of addressing change. We have education and we have the choice architecture of people. And today I want to focus specifically on a specific niche of how we make this change more durable and sustainable, and how we make people implement it sustainably, also in the sense that they will continue doing it, not just for 5 minutes or so, but for their life. And I want first to present the concept of positive sustainability. So positive sustainability is a combination of positive psychology and environmental policy. And I guess that the crowd here, everyone knows what sustainability is, but I want to mention one specific characteristic of sustainability. If we look at the history of sustainability, we started as treating hazards. Like if you have polluting facility, we look at the end of the pipe, what comes out of the end of the pipe, and then we regulate it. And then throughout the years, the science was developed to treat sustainability as a process, as things that we want to change all the time, and think about the environmental aspects, not just at the end of the pipe, but all the time. If we talk about positive psychology, which I will explain a little bit more for this group, most people, when I talk to them about positive psychology, they have this picture in mind. This picture, Walt Disney, happily ever after, the prince saves the princess does absolutely nothing to save herself, and they live happily ever after. So this is the main concept of positive psychology, but it is not what positive psychology is all about. Positive psychology is more this picture, our Gal Gadot, who we're really proud of, and she's Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman, she has her own strength, and also she has many bad things happen to her, and she knows how to deal with them using her strength and prevail them. So this is more what positive psychology is about. And positive sustainability is a combination of these two disciplines, which are quite a little bit different also in terms of their focus, where psychology treats basically the individual and policy, the society. So this is a strange combination, and I will address some of the things that we can take, some of the lessons we can take into how we create more sustainable campuses using this concept. So one particular aspect that we should refer to is what sustainable well-being is. It means, what do we want to grow? If we talk about positive psychology, it's the science of how to make people live optimal lives and to flourish and not just be mentally unill, but to flourish. And sometimes people focus on particular things, and then what happens is that they miswant things, as Gerbert and Wilson coin it. Miswanting means that you want the things that will not be good for you as a person. And also well-being is defined in many different aspects in literature. And we want to define it as the common denominator between sustainability and positive psychology. Things that are good for yourself as a person, as an individual, and also good for the environment. For instance, I could have thought that maybe drinking coffee in a disposable cup will be better for me because I don't have to wash the cup and I'm really in a hurry, so it's good for me. Obviously, it's not good for the environment. And we want to find out what things are both good for yourself and for the environment, and show people that this common denominator is much wider than we intuitively consider it to be. So one thing that we discovered is that there are many mechanisms that make the behavior more sustainable and better for the planet, and at the same time benefit individuals and their own well-being. One such mechanism is environmental hope. When we teach students about environment, we can teach them that the end of the world is coming and that they have to sacrifice everything they like in life, because this is the necessary thing to do if they want to survive. So this is one way to do it. And our research shows that it's not a very effective way to educate people. And a more educative way would be to promote environmental hope. Environmental hope means that you have a goal, protecting the planet, a normative goal. And then there are three aspects that you have to develop. One is that there are many paths to achieve this goal. It's called pathway thinking. And if one path is blocked for some reason, then you can always take another path and follow it and deal with the obstacles. The other component is what we call agency thinking. It's the belief that I can follow this path. And it's like a competence. And the third one is the belief, is the social trust, or what we call in public policy, social capital. It's the part where we trust other actors of society, other members of society, to have the same goal as we do. And we all share the same goal of protecting the planet. And this is what we do. So research shows that people who have environmental hope have better mental well-being, and they act more towards the environment. If people think that everything is already lost, everything is doomed, we're what the doom and gloom concept means that I can do nothing and eat and drink because the world is gonna end anyway, so why bother? Another thing that we want to develop through education is using your own strength. Because here as well, research shows that when you use your strength, you have much better personal well-being. And then you can also be the most effective for the environment. And when we want to promote motivation, then we use the basic needs theory. And we want to promote with the students a sense of autonomy, which means that they can choose their own path. Like if you want to use it in education, for instance, in my classes, I engage all the students in environmental projects, but I don't choose the projects for them. They have to choose their own projects, which gives them a sense of autonomy. It's not unlimited freedom because they do have to do the seminar work, but they have the choice of which project they're going to design. And this builds their internal motivation, and they are engaged in much more sophisticated projects for this reason. And the other thing is competence. We have to show them that they're able to follow the path, and they're able to do the projects that they chose. And the third thing is the relatedness, which is also connected to Henrik's talk about the social norm, which group we think that we belong to. So promoting this sense of relatedness can also create higher motivation. And of course, connecting with nature and mindfulness is very beneficial for the well-being and to achieve environmental goals. And here I want to say why we worry so much also about the mental well-being of students. Because if we see university campuses as a transitional stage, we also see and we all share our concerns for the environment. The same thing goes for the mental well-being of young adults. We see that throughout the years, the mental well-being of people declines. So all of that combines together. It's a way to increase environmental behavior and personal well-being at the same time, and using what Christina Aguilera, the designer of the Paris Agreement, coined as stubborn optimism. Stubborn optimism meaning that you pursue your goal and you do everything you can to make it happen. You acknowledge the problem, you don't ignore it, but you do everything you can in order to pursue your goals. So our research shows that these educational interventions are very important in promoting this change. And I will briefly, in the short time that I have left, talk about how it's implemented in campus in order to implement this positive sustainability approach. So first of all, we're reconsidering our role as educators in a changing world where AI can provide probably most information, and we have been considering it for a long time. So making students engage in real world problems is a very good way to be relevant in this world, giving them the qualifications that they need, like mindfulness, nature connectedness, hope. All these are soft skills that they will still need. As I say, the AI cannot breathe for you, it cannot walk for you, and it cannot smell the nature for you. So this is a very important thing. Also, when you teach, always think about influencing environmental hope for the better and not for the worse. I will not go through with it because I don't have much time left. And there is always a way to present the problem as doom and gloom, or look, do that, we'll be a happy family all together. And this is what positive psychology is basically all about. Going directly for what we want to promote, as opposed to what we want to prevent. I mean, if you want to have a tree planted or a bush of tomatoes, then we need not only to take out the wild weeds, we also need to plant the tomato seeds. So planting the tomato seeds, this is what positive psychology is all about, meaning that we treat all the population, not only in response to illness, and we're being proactive, which is always good also for your well-being. And there is no end for improving, while the traditional approach means that you can only return to a baseline. The positive approach means that you can always improve, and there is no limits on your improving. And I would just jump to one more important takeaway message, which also connects to Henrik's talk. When we talk about environmental behavior, there's a very prominent theory called the goal framing theory developed by Linda Steck. And it says that all of us hold three main goals at each moment in time. The hedonic goal, represented by the cat here, means that we want to be happy and relaxed and have everything easy. And the gain goal means that in Hebrew, it's the three chaf, kesef, kavod, koach in Hebrew. And in English, it's money, it's power and prestige. And the last one, which is the lowest, is the social norm. We all want the social norm, but we first want to be happy and rich. So the best way to achieve the normative goal is when we have it all together, when the environmental behavior is both fun and easy, and it's not too costly, not in time, not in money, not in resources, and even if it's better, it's even better. So I will just sum it up. The basic role of green campuses is in the physical aspect and the educational aspect. And we can enrich the students with equipping them with many skills that can influence their well-being and improve it, and at the same time, create environmental behavior. So this is what positive sustainability is all about. And this is one implementation. I take my students from the Tel Aviv campus. We walk through the nature, the urban environment, but I show them the nature around the campus, which they're not aware of, although they've been studying there for a long time. And then we end our journey at the beach, which is only for Tel Aviv University, but this is the way I teach the students about environments. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dorit. Thank you, Professor Karet, for a very inspiring and thought-inducing presentation. Can you stop sharing your screen? How do I do it? Yes. So thank you so much for your presentation. It was very, it's a lot to think about. I personally always think about the gloom and doom of sustainability more than the actual recreational and hopeful parts of it. So it's very refreshing it's very refreshing outlook. So because we're in the lack of time, so we'll jump right next to the next presentation of Professor Dan Kaufman, Senior Lecturer and Head of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center of Sapir College in Israel on integrating students in community service, a catalyst for deepening awareness of SDGs. So Dan, the floor is yours. It's not the presentation mode. Yes.
We can't hear you yet, though.
You're mute, Dan.
Dan, you're on
Okay.
mute.
Now it's okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for this. So what I want to speak about in my short presentation is about a very deep change that we went through the college, which actually started. Oops. Yeah. It started after the October 7th, and at this time it became very clear to us that Sapir College and its students mainly, I would say, stands out as a key regional entity for the rehabilitation of the region. I must say that it was not clear at the very first day or even a month that we understood that actually we are the most important entity in terms of the ability to attract students to come here in the mass amount of people, of lecturers, of students that can really make a change. And when we start to think about our students, it became clear to us that deepening the awareness of SDGs is essential for achieving long-term rehabilitation. It means not only that our student can really be active in issues of rehabilitation in the region, but also in the ability in the fact that they are coming to live here, because I guess most of you know that most people, or almost all of the people in this region, it's the deep periphery of Israel, left the region. And there was a big question of how to bring them back. So we also recognize that the region, as well as the college recovery, so it's not only the region, but it's also the college itself, depends on our ability to attract young students with strong values. And those who prioritize environment, social issues, and those who will be active in the region. So we were looking at one hand for bringing them, but on the other hand to influence the students that already study here, that what we want is to attract students with SDGs, which are committed to SDGs, to us, and to make our students, the ones who already came back to study in the campus, to be more aware of SDGs. We want them to be driven by purpose, resilience, and desire to make an impact. So what needs to be done from our side is systematically incorporating the SDGs across the peer curricula, and I mean throughout all their years here. And we want our students to be much more involved in economical issues, social issues, cultural issues, and I'll get deep into it. So first of all, we understood that it's important for us. It's to position Sapir as forward-thinking academic institution. We want to promote values of sustainability, innovation, and social responsibility among our students, and again, in order to rehabilitate the region itself, because we are in the center of the region, and we need the region for the rehabilitation of Sapir itself. We wanted to equip students with tools to create solutions for local and global challenges. I would say mainly in our case, the local, which are really many challenges that appear after the 7th of October. Some of them were before, because as I said, we are in the deep periphery of Israel. Adding to that, the 7th of October, we had there is a lot to be done in the area. And we wanted very much to encourage students to remain in the region and contribute to its recovery and growth, not only when they are here, but to create to better the chances that they will remain in the region. And we believe that by having them more engaged in the problems, and I'm saying problems that most of them are very much related, and I will come into it, to the SDGs, making them deeply engaged in the solution of many of the challenges will make them stay here and create long-term growth, long-term impact on the region. So as I said, we wanted to attract young, talented, and committed students from across Israel, but also very much to influence the students that are already here. Attract young leaders who want to make the difference and to make our students leaders in the region, to foster a generation committed to sustainable development, and I will come how exactly we are doing it, and encourage students to remain. That's already, I touched this point. So our first year, our first academic year, what we did, and I think this is kind of revolutionary, we created a course which is not, it doesn't have a fixed day and fixed hour in the week, but it is going throughout the year, different days, different hours, depending on the lecturers. And we bring 100 lecturers to share their unique perspective on the regional challenges and resources. We wanted very much our students to be aware of the challenges, of the cultural challenges, social challenges, economical challenges that exist here, with and without regard to the 7th of October. We started to think about it after the 7th, but when we thought about it deeply, we understand that actually students are coming to the universities and they're spending 3 to 4 years there in the campus, and they don't have a clue on the economic, cultural, social challenges in the place where they're living. They're just coming there. They choose the university from different reasons, usually because of its excellency, or things that they heard about the university, or friends that are going to the university, but they are not. They are coming there. They are living there. They are living there, and then they leave the region. Their contribution to the city, to the area where they are studying is almost neglected. And we want very much to change this realm. We want them to be much more involved, and first because we think it has a lot of influence on them as people, as students. Second, because it has a strong impact on the region. And third, as I said, we believe, and this is something that will need to be studied and improve in the coming years, that they will tend to stay here in the periphery and not just visit us and leave to the center. So we created a course with 100 lecturers. I will come to who are these lecturers. It is provided by lecture, workshop, study visit, and we believe that it will create much more community integration and belonging. So, yeah, who are the lecturers? It might be mayors, company managers, social workers, economists, industry representative, manager of cultural institute, social organization, healthcare professional, community leaders, etc., etc., etc. There will be 100 like this. There will also be study visit to farms, to maybe to see a cinema, but all of the visits and the lecture will be concentrated on the challenges of the region. Now the challenges are, of course, the post-war, post-7th of October, but we want to keep it. We want to keep it for a long time, because we really believe that this is the way to integrate the students in what happens here. and what are the challenges. By the way, we saw, after we thought about it, we saw that the University of Tulane in New Orleans actually adopted a very similar a way of thinking about how to rehabilitate New Orleans after the hurricane. How it will work, practically students will engage with 36 to 52 diverse speakers over the year. They are choosing the topic that they want. They go to which lecture they want. They choose the lecture. Sometimes the department tell them that they have to listen to this and that, but usually it's on their own decision. The lecture, I must say, from a personal point of view, I want to participate in all of them. They're so interesting. The topics that are being taught there. So it is equivalent to 2 to 3 credit points. So that's why it's usually 2 to 3, so 36 to 52. Some departments are asking the student to be more involved and to take even 4 credit points, but not less than 2. That's the decision of the college. By the way, it crosses all the departments. I mean, it's almost mandatory. There are 2 departments that are not participating in it, but it is kind of mandatory. That's the spirit that comes from the management of the college to all of the faculties. So when I'm analyzing what is being taught, what are the topics of these lectures, it's all SDGs. It is 100% SDGs. I circled here quality education, of course, but in gender equality, but also a lot of some of the topics deals with clean energies. There's a lot of discussion here to make this region, which is on the border of the desert, of the Negev Desert, to be the center, I would say, of solar energy production or alternative energy production. Some of the topics are decent work and economic growth. Of course, industry, some of the industry were hardly affected by the attack. And there is a need to rebuild them and to bring them back to production. So a lot of industry innovation and infrastructure are among the topics. Of course, reduce inequalities, which is almost by definition because of the characteristic of this region, which is the periphery with a lot of poverty, with unemployment. So these topics are not related directly to the 7th of October, but they are here with and without. Things of sustainable cities, because a lot of cities need to be cities, or more, I would say, kibbutzim and moshavim, and so it's agricultural villages, need to be rebuilt. So when it's kind of not nice to say, but it's an opportunity to build them as sustainable places because they have to be rebuilt from the beginning. Issues of climate action and, of course, issues of justice are all among the main topics that are being delivered in this type of a course, in this 100 lecture course. We believe that exposing the students to the challenges will make them later, and I will come to it in the second and the third year, much more engaged, much more active in trying to solve some of the problems that they heard in this lectures. So I say we want to raise awareness, to expose them to social, economic, and cultural challenges, to build commitment of the students, strengthen their personal connection to the region, and to the communities, and of course promoting several of the SDGs. We want to encourage critical thinking and to have multidisciplinary viewpoints. That's why students of all faculties participate in the different topics. I mean, it's not, and this is again something new. It's not a course that or a lecture that given to a certain class or a certain department. It is any and each of the topics is open to all of the students. So it is an opportunity for the students to meet students from other faculties, to discuss the issues with students from other faculties, and to really have a multidisciplinary viewpoint, even when they are in the first year of study. And the feedbacks that we are getting from the students are really amazing, in the sense that they really appreciate the ability that the opportunity that they get to meet and discuss things from different viewpoints. And we believe that through first-hand stories and experience, students gain awareness, knowledge, and the drive to play an active role in promoting the region sustainable goals. And we want them to be engaged, as I said. Now, when I'm coming to the second and third year, I can divide the students in which were not started yet. We are in the first year of the program, so I will describe what are the plans. But two things which I will elaborate in the yellow are already happening here for several years. So I will get into it. But in the second and the third years, there is the community service in different aspects, in different faculties, supporting local businesses, for example, of the economic department, throughout marketing, innovation, and strategy. So students are being involved with businesses or other organizations to assist them in different aspects. Especially, I would say, digital marketing, innovation is being done by the economic department. Social and culture initiatives are being conducted will be conducted or will be implemented by the relevant departments, communication, film, and art. There is by the law school maximizing legal rights, so they will establish a clinic, a law clinic to assist people to reach services and to get their rights. There's another activity that is planned to promote local art and culture through community events. There is another by the communication department, developing and publishing regional journal. And we want some of the students, we believe that it will be about 1/4 of the students of the third year that will go into research of issues and topics that they were exposed in the first year, and maybe through their activity in the second year. So we want them to enter into a research on the challenges, and of course to suggest a solution or policy action or things like that. And we want also some of the students to develop innovative idea. As Einav said, I'm heading the entrepreneurship center of the college, and we have already students since 6 years now that are developing solution not only for the region. In the last 2 years, it's solution for challenges that raised from the region, but before, most of the solution were solution for social challenges. I can give some examples of things that has been developed here. Some of them were even were implemented. Some of them became startups. So there were tens or maybe more than 100 initiatives. So I'm just giving few examples, but there were 2 TV series by the film school. It was 2 TV series on art and architecture based on youth stuff. By the way, they've been presented to some of the TV channels with a lot of enthusiasm to continue with them. We had a project of a portable solar system for agricultural fields. Portable because in between the farmer is planting, there is a time where the field is actually not in use. It is resting, if you want. So to have a portable solar system that you can take from one place to another. Simple and very low cost accessibility to lawyers. This was also something that was implemented. Parking solution for handicaps. I will not get into the technology there, but a very promising project. Mobile exhibition on trucks for remote areas of culture. I didn't write it, of culture. Establishment of village for drug addicts. It's a very, very interesting project. I will not go deeper into it. If you want to ask later, you can. SOS communication in Bedouin villages with no cellular connectivity, etc. So this is the idea to have the students much more involved in issues of community, of economics, of culture, of social challenges. There's no need to say the SDGs because it goes without saying most or 99% of these topics are having a direct link to the SDGs. I will finish with this slide, raising awareness of sustainable development goals and fostering active involvement, empower students to first drive positive change in the communities. In our case, it's essential really because there's so many challenges that we are facing, and turn the challenges into opportunities for growth, for growth and innovation. And what we believe is that this approach equips students to make meaningful impact while preparing them to be the future leaders. I mention it because it is not so much matter for us if at the end of their activity, at the end of their studies, they will or will not implement the ideas that they were working on. We want to make them leaders and leaders in the region and leaders in understanding the importance of taking SDG into any plans and any future career that they are choosing. That's all.
Thank you, Dan. Professor Kaufman, for the presentation, and good luck with with everything. We have like we're past the deadline, but if there's any remarks that anyone has or questions following Dan's presentation, yeah, Henrik.
Just a quick one. It sounds like a really interesting approach. I like the framing of the 100 lectures, sort of to get 100 different perspectives or insights, and it reminds me a lot of an element that I had in my bachelor studies at Leuphana University, where in the first semester, throughout all courses together, you study overarching questions such as science bears responsibility. That was one of the topics where you would be exposed to what is the role of science, what is your role in society, why do we do this? And it was a combination of a lecture series and then seminars where you could choose between different topics. But that was a huge part. So it was a 15 credit point course, I think. So a lot of time spent there, but it really brought together and connected students across disciplines also throughout their studies then. So that's where friendships were formed too. So I think this is a great initiative, and I really like the idea of the framing of here's 100 perspectives, 100 things that go wrong, and how you are connected to them and have a chance to change it. So great project.
Thank you very much. I must say that it takes a lot of effort in terms of the two staff, academic staff members that are responsible to it. They have 3 research assistants or that help them. So it's a big task. If you count the amount of students that participate, of course, it's not a lot, but because you can say it's five staff members or 2 and 3 assistants that actually deliver this course to about 1,000 students every year. So we have on average about 100 students participate in each of this lecture. And it just started. It's the middle of the first semester, but it's really, really fascinating to see the students, to see the discussion through the lecture and after. Yeah, we hope we are doing the right thing.
Thank you so much. So we are now concluding the first academic session of this conference, and I hope we'll meet most of you in also the next sessions for logistical and operational managers, and we'll be discussing mostly waste and recycling, which are also very important values and key aspects in SDG and sustainability. So thank you all, and hopefully see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. See you later.